Yeah, I have 5 minutes because I don't want to be late for lunch. So I'm the research engineer on the Solve project. And yes, I've implemented like a first demo of what we imagine a tool for exploring social media posts for mental health purposes could look like. And it kind of brings together, the idea is that it will ultimately bring together all of these things that we have heard throughout the morning. And I think I just go on to the link and, oh, it's white here. It's black on my computer. So the idea is that, oh gosh, it looks really different on here. Oh, that's so confusing. Okay. Sorry, I'm really put off. No, it's fine. It's because my computer is in dark mode. I didn't realize that it will change as well. So imagine you are a clinician and you have different timelines. And what this tool shows you is the individual posts. It shows you moments of change that we have heard earlier. So in the future, they will be generated by AI. These are the human annotated ones, I think. And so you can identify where there's a switch. And you can also see in this timeline here that usually there will actually be bars. And which time period there will be a switch. And you could select it up and see specifically where the switch is, what kind of message, what kind of post prompted that switch. And also the summaries will change if you select a shorter period and be more zoomed into that specific moment. And also for areas where there is not really any relevant information, the model will pick that up and just tell you, okay, there's nothing of interest for what you have want to generate in this specific period. This is another timeline that's interesting that includes escalation points and switch points. And again, you can, this is really difficult to navigate. Okay. You can zoom into the areas and look at the original posts, but also look at summary for a more specific zoomed in version. Taking this as an example, you can see that there's a couple of switches in here, which is intersected by messages that are not really relevant for a mental health assessment. And the summary essentially tells you that there's an interplay between these adaptive and maladaptive states, which is then, if you're more interested in it as a clinician, you can go down and see the messages that are just kind of irrelevant and when these switches occur and what the content is. But okay, we're almost done. Say go back to the slides. No. Oh, it's here. Okay, perfect. So for future work, we're thinking of including filters for different health conditions, for example, depression. This is something that Domenico actually asked earlier. So we want to be able to specify these summaries for something that a clinician needs and that or a psychologist needs in a specific point. The summaries that you've just seen there were focusing on adaptive and maladaptive states, but you might need something else. So the idea is that you have different options and different possibilities to have these summaries. And yeah, because we're actually running out of time. If you have any ideas what you would want to be included in a tool like this, please come and find me and ask me about it. And that's it. It's time for lunch, I think, unless there's any questions.
I think maybe we can take a few, a few questions if there are any, either here or online.
Hi. This, like, looking at whether people change is one of the reason why kind of clinicians take notes. But I think the primary reason is medical legal reason, right? Or kind of any kind of legal reasons for kind of keeping kind of a note of what's happened, and also like what people have done and so on. I don't know if kind of a way of sort of increasing usefulness of the summarization is to check against any standards that what people are required to write in their notes, because this is like hardly ever I look at the note and say, actually, oh, this I can see that people change over time, but I normally write the notes to sort of justify why I made some decisions for a particular patient, or why I did anything with the patient, and just in a way, it's not always thinking about the medical legal defense, but it's certainly an important part of it. Just wonder if you looked at these kind of notes with that kind of angle, because that's one of the main reasons why anyone will take notes.
So this was more from a monitoring angle, and this is where working with Dana, who's giving a talk later in the afternoon. Rather than but going forward, we are considering sort of things like synthesizing notes and therapy sessions. But I think she had told us, and again we can discuss with Dana when she joins in the afternoon, that there were two types of notes. One is for the, as you said, the legal purposes. So, and sort of this is the kind of notes that the client could ask to see, but it's also the notes for the clinician, so that they can monitor the progress. And those are their, and I think this was more kind of the monitoring kind rather than the ones necessarily going for the, yeah.
Like what we do, like recently in the NHS, what we tend to do is that all our letters, the patients are covered, so they do receive them. So that actually offers a very interesting challenge in terms of writing in a way that is kind of understandable, user-friendly, but also trying to think about what you write. So maybe another thing to think about.
Yeah, so I think the style and the sort of the generation, according to the personalization, actually also in terms of whether this is going to be for, the eyes of a patient, or whether this is for the, the clinician's own use. Yes, it should be taken into account. So I think there was Greg, and then maybe to in the front.
Just a couple points, and the last one about, and I'll go to the question, but sometimes lawyers who are wanting access to the file want access to the clinical note, but they also want access to the clinician's thoughts about that. So it's sometimes a specious differentiation that they, when a lawsuit is filed, that they are not going to see that. The question I related to is that you asked about what some suggestions. Sometimes the absence of things is very important. The absence of suicide, the absence of murderous thoughts. So those absences may be very important to note, and that's not noted in the summary that I saw there.
It was noted in the, I guess, the timeline. The summary says there is nothing to summarize here. But yes, I guess that could be phrased differently. There's that.
Thank you.
I think it's on.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe it's a question, maybe you thought about it, but I saw that there are two options, so switch and escalation. So does that mean that switch can be also positive?
A switch, and I think other people are more better, but switch, yeah.
It's a sudden change where the escalation is also can be both positive and negative, but it's a gradual thing.
Oh, so the escalation is gradual as opposed to the. So can the system kind of do both at the same time? Because it's going to say S and E at the same time, like so that if someone wants. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think last question, because
I was trying to find a good example, but
Sorry to keep everyone waiting for their lunch. And this is more a comment rather than a question. As a clinician, I think I have seen in the last 25 years the style of documentation changing. And I have started using AI in a specific organization where I work. And it also means very much in line with your question around noting negatives. Like in OSCE settings, people learn to speak in a way. I think there's a clinical element of how people interact. So the ambient voice picks up on things and documents. So it's not purely everything has to be done. It's a two-way or three-way traffic in some ways. It's not everything has to be coded. I think that there's some learning from the clinician perspective of how the conversation is held, bearing in mind that the documentation is being done through AI. And the other finer point is in NHS, I think there's another element around form filling, which we have spoken about, the longitudinal element and a cross-sectional element, which is the summarizing and the documentation. There's a third element of form filling, which we haven't spoken about, which I think is a low-hanging fruit for AI potentially to fill in, especially for mental health, because we have a narrative documentation style.
yeah, I think information extraction is indeed a more low-hanging fruit, and I think there's also some successful work that is even being done with sort of simple prompts on information extraction, which is probably, I guess, why we haven't spent too much time research-wise on it. But I think definitely Jayu in her work, especially with the sort of the timeline, the data sets that she created for the timeline narratives, she was definitely exploiting information extraction from LLMs to get the sort of the kind of this relation triples that she was talking about. So yeah, I don't know whether you wanted to say anything, Jayu, about your experience of using LLMs for information extraction.
I think that when I'm using the LLM to extract the information, I found that if you give it clear concepts, it will extract more detailed information from there. If you give them, for example, when I extract the clinical concepts, mental health related information from the timeline, when I give them more detailed information, like the clinical concepts, and give them some examples about this, and it will extract the more mental health related information you like. And for the event, you need also to give them a more clear description about what you want, and then you will extract more information you want. So that's what my experience. Yeah.